Imagine this, a single day where the whole idea of war just flips on its head. The battlefield wasn't a patch of dirt somewhere. It was the digital world, the capital markets. We're going to talk about April 17, 2026, and how a financial war, with billion-dollar stakes, was fought and won in just a few hours.
So that's the big question, right? How can one single tweet actually reshape an entire conflict? It sounds like something out of a movie, but it is our new reality. In this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how a few characters on a screen triggered a financial shockwave felt all around the world.
Look, to really get what happened here, you've got to understand this huge shift. Modern conflicts are this messy mix of diplomacy, information warfare, and massive market manipulation. The real bombs weren't dropping from the sky. They were going off on the trading floors of Wall Street.
All right, so let's walk through what happened that morning. We're going to follow a step-by-step timeline of how this whole digital showdown unfolded, from the first little spark to a full-blown financial inferno.
Okay, so here's the play-by-play for the morning. It all starts at 8:45 a.m. with a tweet coming out of Iran, right before the U.S. markets are about to open. Then, less than an hour later, you have the White House launching its counterattack. Just three key moments that changed, well, everything. So it all kicks off right here with what looked like a pretty simple message from Iran's foreign minister. The timing was perfect, designed to hit the markets right as they were waking up. It was meant to be a signal. The only problem? The markets heard a completely different message than the one Iran thought it was sending.
And here it is, the actual tweet. Now, the words that traders absolutely jumped on were completely open to all merchant ships. I mean, on the surface, that looks like a huge de-escalation, right? The end of a blockade, a massive win for the global economy. But as always, the devil was in the details.
And this was the catch, the fine print, if you will. The tweet mentioned ships had to use coordinated channels set up by Iran. Now, what does that sound like? It sounds like Iranian control, not a free-for-all. But the market, in its rush of excitement, just blew right past that part. All they heard was that one magic word, open.
So before Iran even had a chance to say, wait, that's not what we meant, Donald Trump swooped in and just seized the entire narrative. Within an hour, he fired off what the source calls a machine gun blast of posts. And he wasn't just responding, he was literally creating a new reality for millions of traders.
He didn't just claim victory was happening, he completely invented the terms of the deal. He laid out this whole fantasy framework as if it were a done deal. The U.S. gets Iran's enriched uranium for free, Iran promises to never close the strait again, and oh yeah, the U.S. is already helping clear mines. Get this, none of it was confirmed, not a single bit. But in that moment, it didn't even matter.
And boom! The reaction was immediate, and it was huge. The market just went into a state of pure euphoria, acting like a major world crisis that just evaporated into thin air. You just have to look at the numbers to see what happened next.
I mean, look at this. The result was absolutely insane. As traders piled into this good news, the price of crude oil just fell off a cliff. At the same time, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq rocketed up to new record highs. We're talking billions of dollars moving hands, all because of a couple of posts on social media.
Just let that sink in. 14%. The price of crude oil dropped 14% in a single day. That is a massive, massive move. This was a financial shockwave, and it wasn't driven by oil wells or shipping lanes. It was driven by a war of words online.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question, or in this case, the billion-dollar question. Why? Why would super smart, sophisticated financial pros bet billions on claims that were, let's be honest, totally unverified and pretty unbelievable? The answer, it turns out, has everything to do with the psychology of the market itself.
Okay, so the source material we're looking at here puts forward a pretty specific theory for why this happened. It suggests that the people making these huge financial bets are basically hardwired to be long USA/Israel and short Iran. It argues they're in a kind of information bubble where every piece of news gets spun into a positive, and if some fake news comes along that fits their story, well, they treat it as real. So in that kind of environment, Trump's version of events wasn't just believed, it was amplified like crazy.
So you've got Wall Street popping champagne corks, right? Meanwhile, back in Tehran, they were absolutely furious. Their whole economic game plan relied on high oil prices and a shaky U.S. market to force Trump to the table. And they had just watched him do the exact opposite, using their own words to do it.
And this right here, this is the heart of the disaster for Iran. What they meant to say was strategic. We are managing access, meaning they're still in control. But what the market heard was absolute. It's over. The blockade is finished. By the time they could even try to set the record straight, it was too late. The financial damage was done.
And the backlash inside Iran was swift and brutal. Media tied to the Revolutionary Guard just tore into their own foreign minister for the unprofessional tweet. They knew right away that this one little tweet, this misleading ambiguity, had basically just handed the U.S. a huge win in the information war, and not a single shot was even fired.
So here's the bottom line. At the end of the day, did anything actually change on the ground? Nope. Iran still had complete physical control over the water in the Strait of Hormuz. But the U.S., without spending a dime or firing a shot, had just wrestled control of the price of oil right out of Iran's hands. They won the financial war.
And that leaves us with one last nagging question. Wall Street picked a winner. They priced in a peace deal that didn't exist. But back in the real world, had a single ship, even one, actually tried to sail through this supposedly open strait? Because as we're about to see, there's a huge difference between what the market thinks is happening and what's actually happening.